loves, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jess if you're new around here, and if you're not new around here, welcome back my love. How are you doing today? I hope you're fine and dandy. Today's video is a continuation from my series People Describe Their. This is a series where I ask all of you amazing people on the internet to send me in videos answering questions that I have given you, and I compile it, edit it together and put that video out there for you lot to enjoy, relate to, research, whatever's going to be helpful for you. So this video is People Describe Their Invisible Illness, and this one was something that is very close to my heart and very important for me to put out there. Now, some of these videos are going to be quite upsetting for you to watch. These people are beautiful people, they are amazing, and they have really opened up to us to share their experience. I hope that if maybe you've been battling through some things on your own and you don't know what's going on in your brain or in your body, maybe you might be able to find some comfort in these people, and maybe you might be able to begin the journey of diagnosis for yourself. I just want to say a massive, massive, massive thank you to all of these beautiful, beautiful people. You lot are so brave, despite maybe some of you not thinking you was going to enter this video. Maybe some of you filmed this video 100 times before actually sending it to me. Thank you so much. Let's get into it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful life, and I'm going to see you very soon.
What are your invisible illnesses and how do they affect your life? So I have two illnesses which I would consider invisible. One affects me mentally, the other physical. I do suffer with anxiety, and I also have a skin disease called hidradenitis suppurativa. My anxiety, I would say, holds me back in every aspect of my life. It stops me from reaching my full potential, because everything that I do or attempt to do, every conversation that I hold, I'm constantly thinking about every possible outcome of my actions, which most commonly just makes me not want to go through with it, like for fear of failure or looking stupid or potentially having a panic attack. I just feel like I'm always thinking to myself, every time I say something, I'm like, oh, I'm so stupid, why did I say that? I hate my life. They hate me, they're lying to me, they don't like me, and it's just exhausting, honestly. My skin disease causes me physical pain just every day of my life. Hidradenitis suppurativa is basically where the sweat glands become inflamed, so I get a lot of like cysts and abscesses, blackheads as well, and I have a lot of scarring on my skin. So when the abscesses get really aggressive, it's just a lot of pain to just exist. I'm usually in mild pain as opposed to aggressive pain, but I just don't really know what it's like to not be in pain anymore. It's just my normal now.
So my invisible illness is PTSD. It affects me in basically every aspect of my life. Sleep, being able to go outside. If I hear a noise, I immediately go to a PTSD type place. When I'm experiencing something, to me, like, the threat level is like life or death, so the fear I feel like constantly is all the time. So it's things like, even if I'm in a shop and there's a male person working at a counter or something, or I'm walking down the street and a guy walks past me, it's insane the amount of time that I spend in fear. So it's kind of like affected every aspect of my life.
My invisible illness has a new name, but most people know it as borderline personality disorder, or BPD, and it's mixed with psychosis.
My invisible illness is suspected endometriosis. So I've been undergoing tests for a while now to see if I actually have endometriosis. It affects my life in the sense of like clothing. So clothing wise, I have to be really careful what I wear because I bleed so heavily. Money wise, I had to spend a lot of money on like pads and tampons and things like that. Also affects my relationships. My relationship with my boyfriend, we actually haven't had sex in probably 2 years because I find it excruciating painful, so it also affects my relationships.
My invisible illness is 𝘎𝙀𝘾𝙊𝙉𝙎, and it basically means that the insulating layer around my nose will degenerate over time, so the nerve impulses travel slower. It mostly affects like knees down, elbows down. So with my hands, I find that I have got some muscle wastage there, and I tend to get cramps in them if I've been writing a lot, using them a lot. Generally my grip strength isn't very good. And then in my feet, my ankles are quite wobbly, like my balance isn't the best. I've had some surgeries on my feet to try and straighten out some of my toes, because as the muscle wastes, it changes the shape of your feet. That's something that's progressive, so it'll progressively get worse as I get older. But at the moment, I'm managing to walk around and things without any splints or assistance, really.
My invisible illness is an anxious depressive disorder, which means I get anxious over everything: relationships, random people on the street, uni work, school work, calling the technician, calling to get takeout, just random stuff, and also really, really important stuff, which turns into panic attacks because I internalize a lot of my anxiety. I've learned how to not show it and not feel it. It comes to a point where it gets too much and suddenly I get a panic attack because I've been internalizing all this anxiety. When there are too many panic attacks or anxiety gets too much, I get into a depressive episode. When that happens, it can turn into depression or I can get better.
So my invisible illness is type 1 diabetes, which is a chronic, which means it's incurable, autoimmune disease. And what it means is my immune system has actually killed off my pancreas, which is a vital organ which makes the hormone insulin, which controls your blood sugars in your body. So my pancreas no longer makes insulin, so I have to control it myself using treatment methods. This means that trying to get that balance to keep me healthy affects every single part of my life. My social life, exercising, eating, sleeping, literally everything, every single day affects everything that I do, because if I don't have the balance all the time, I can end up with long-term conditions or get really ill really quickly.
My invisible illness is OCD. It does affect my life significantly. I feel like OCD is something that can almost ruin your everyday life because it's really, really time consuming.
My invisible illness is anxiety and depression. At the beginning, it affected it majorly. I was a little hermit. I didn't really want to go out, I didn't do anything, I didn't want to be around any new people at all. It's gotten better. It still affects me, my anxiety, more than my depression though. I still get anxious about being around new people, or sometimes I'll still not want to go out. It does sometimes still affect me, but not as bad as what it once did.
I have 3 invisible illnesses. So I have anxiety, depression and PTSD. They impact my life greatly because I basically plan every day around my illnesses. I stay within areas I feel safe and comfortable in. Like, I don't really branch out and experience new things because my anxiety will play a huge part in that. I just won't feel comfortable and safe enough to do that, so it impacts my life because it tends to limit my life.
I have tuberous sclerosis, which is a genetic mutation that causes my body to produce benign tumors in my vital organs, such as my brain, my kidneys, my heart, my skin. And I also have epilepsy, which is a symptom. My seizures are not that strong, but they're more frequent. I have them about 2 times per week, usually like 40 seconds long.
So I have got borderline personality disorder, and that is a personality disorder that has got the following symptoms that you have to meet to be diagnosed with. Frequent efforts to avoid abandonment, real or imagined abandonment, such as cutting off communication with someone that you could fear that they are being abandoned just because someone didn't reply, pretty much. Distorted and unstable image of themselves, rapid change in relationships and views of other people, between idolization and pure hatred, pretty much. Reoccurring thoughts of suicide and feelings of depression, self-harm and cutting when experiencing anxiety. Impulsive and risky behaviour such as shopping sprees, substance abuse, reckless driving, things that lead to negative consequences. Widely varying mood swings that change within a few hours, few days, few seconds, between depression, irritability, anxiety, extreme paranoia, mania, and anger. Problems maintaining anger issues with intense, inappropriate, uncontrollable anger fits. Difficulty trusting people because of the irrational fear that people's intentions are going to reject them and that they're going to be on their own and be abandoned. And pretty much that affects every single day of my life because I struggle to talk to, be friends with, be in a relationship with anyone without something, one of them things, being involved. From the second I wake up in the morning, I don't know what mood I'm going to be in, what personality I'm going to be in, and I don't know how I'm going to react to things. And it's a little bit scary, and it's really, really bad for other people because they don't really know how to take me sometimes. So it negatively affects my life quite a bit.
I suffer with mainly fibromyalgia and allodynia, but many additional and random illnesses now and in my past. I'm affected in daily life in many different ways, but most debilitating, I would say, include non-restorative sleep, chronic fatigue and concentration issues. I can't handle heat, movement or touch. Anything that touches my skin, or if the weather's hot, or if I do an activity that I have to move a lot in, my brain will send pain signals and tell my nerves to react, and my nerves will react as if there is painful stimuli on my skin, even though it may just be a water drop or laying on a sheet. I never know how I'm gonna wake up, if I'm gonna have a good pain day, a bad pain day, if I'm gonna have 1 hour of energy, if I'm gonna have 4 hours of energy. So planning is pretty impossible. I have to have a pretty flexible schedule and be prepared for any situation.
My invisible illness is depression, and I also suffer from chronic pain. It really affects my life. It's really hard to deal with. I cry so often, I'm in constant pain, and there's no escape from it. I have not found a medication that takes away my pain, and it is agonising.
So I've got endometriosis. Basically means the lining of your uterus grows outside of your uterus as well as inside your uterus, and it's pretty painful. I only found out a few months ago because I had an ultrasound which revealed a hemorrhaging cyst on my ovary, and because of that I had to quit my job because I was just in so much pain. My periods are so painful, usually put me in bed for about 2 weeks a month. I'm just constantly tired, like so fatigued and exhausted. I sleep like 12 hours a night, plus I squeeze in a few naps during the day as well.
So I have juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, 2 strands, idiopathic and polyarticular. Idiopathic meaning that they don't know why it started, there's really no cause for it. Polyarticular meaning it affects more than 5 joints. For me, it means that it affects all of my joints except for some of my toe joints and my spine and neck, which is awesome. It affects my life in a lot of different ways. One of the biggest ways is like getting milk jugs open. As you can see, I'm a plant mom, so even doing some plant care I need a little bit of help with. But the biggest one for me would be the range of motion in my wrists. I only have this much forward in both wrists and this much back without pushing, but it's not that much, so that kind of makes daily things hard.
I have something called borderline personality disorder, which is a mental condition for the brain and the mind. Basically, we have high levels of stress and anger, problems relating to other people, problems controlling emotions, and we're very impulsive to do things. We find it really hard to feel comfortable in ourselves. We struggle with painful thoughts and beliefs about ourselves and others, constantly doubting everybody. I don't really have any grey areas, so sometimes, I'm just going to be real. Sometimes I'm either completely starving myself or I'm overindulging. Sometimes I'm either really, really happy and I'm running around and I've got bursts of energy, or I don't leave my house for weeks on end because I'm so fucking depressed and unhappy. I find it really hard to look at myself in mirrors and things like that because I'm constantly nitpicking at myself. I'm never happy. I'm just constantly wanting to change things that I know that I physically cannot change. I have an external crisis pretty much every morning because I don't know who I am. Borderline, you have like multiple personalities inside of you. It's kind of like multiple personality disorder, and I can't speak for everybody. Obviously everybody deals with things differently and everybody's diagnosis is kind of different for each individual, so I'm not speaking out for every single person with BPD. You know, do I even like my hobbies? Do I even like my friends? Do they even like me? I find it really hard to trust people because I don't really trust myself. Sometimes I don't shower for weeks, and then something will snap inside me, and then I'm washing everything, I'm cleaning vigorously everywhere, and applying like lotions and potions because self-care and all of that, and I'm exhausted a lot of the time because I just don't know what the fuck is going on in my brain. Like sometimes I just have to sit down and be like, look, Sophia, do you have a reason to be acting like this, or is it the borderline? I really have to kind of nail my symptoms, and I feel like every single day is a learning curve.
My invisible illness is called hidradenitis suppurativa, or HS for short. Some people even refer to it as acne inversa. It's an inflammation of my sebaceous sweat glands. It leads to cysts. They can form to be quite large. I've had ones that are larger than golf balls, usually filled with pus and blood. They can become infected or just really highly inflamed. Once you start getting them in a certain area, they form tracts between them. So once you get one, there's a track to another one, and they feed off each other and more can grow in that area. So it's really important to keep them under wraps or treat them as best as you can. I currently am in remission for the most part. I will never fully be in remission, but I haven't had a flare-up in a really long time. because of some things that I'll get to. It can be really debilitating for certain people.
I have schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type, and borderline personality disorder. It's affected my life greatly. I've had to drop out from a prestigious college, and I'm no longer able to take care of myself or to function in a work environment or really any environment. I cannot handle stress at all. It puts me into psychosis, or it makes me incredibly suicidal. So stress is very dangerous for me. So I have to take away like things in my life that are stressful, which means I really can't work. I can't handle school. Friendships are very stressful. I stay in my room because that's what's safest for me. You know, it's very lonely most of the time.
I have suffered with depression and anxiety for what feels like forever. I've always felt things very strongly. When I'm sad, it's always hard to pull me out of it. And I feel like I have a lot of things maybe symptomatic of these things. Like my anger is off the charts. I am struggling with managing it, especially recently. Over the past couple of years, I have been battling an eating disorder. I wouldn't say that my depression and anxiety have always affected my life. I've always kind of managed them, but over the years they've gotten harder to manage. When my anger sort of spiraled and when my weight started dropping, obviously then it started to affect my life. People started to notice that maybe I wasn't okay. I've destroyed relationships because of it. So it's definitely affected my life.
Depression and anxiety, and it has majorly affected my life.
My invisible illnesses are depression, anxiety and PTSD, and depending on how well I'm coping, they can really negatively affect my life, especially on a day-to-day basis. I'm in a much better place than I used to be, but last year I really really struggled with going to college. That was because of my depression and anxiety, and my PTSD has definitely affected my life. It has made it really difficult to believe that I am worthy, to understand that I not only deserve to be loved, but that I will find a relationship in which I am treated right and that I will be happy in.
My condition is called ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome, and it affects my life by making me constantly tired, no matter how much sleep I get or how much exercise I do or anything. Severely fatigued 70 to 80% of the time. It also makes me in pain all the time as well. It has a huge toll on my social life. Firstly, I barely hang out with friends or see or do things outside of college, and I have to prioritise things all the time. So if I'm planning something, I've got to think about what I'm doing for the next few days and prioritise things to avoid having an energy crash, which I have all the time when I do anything. Anything really. I have an energy crash that's really bad and it lasts like a day and I can't really move or do anything. And it affects my studies. I'm only in college like one day a week at the minute because of how tired I am.
When I was 14, I was diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic arthritis, but it is an autoimmune disease, which means my immune system is attacking itself, which is why I have arthritis. So while I'm very fortunate to be in remission now, when I was first diagnosed or when the symptoms started to appear, I would have flare-ups very often, which meant my joints were very swollen. I couldn't really move around as efficiently as I could, so my mum would have to dress me, she'd have to do my hair, she'd have to cut up my food, and obviously I'd have to use like wheelchairs and crutches. It was a very difficult situation to be in because I'd been healthy, I'd been sporty, I'd been active, and then all of a sudden it was all taken away from me very quickly. So to counteract the symptoms I was getting, I was put on a drug called methotrexate, which is also a chemotherapy agent and an immune suppressant. I was very ill taking the medication. It didn't work very well for me at all, and as a side effect I was often very ill and I was often in the hospital and had various infections. For years I was not very healthy.
How long did diagnosis take and how did you feel about it? It was a bittersweet moment to know my diagnosis, because it was sweet because I knew what I had and how I could treat it. It was sad because I couldn't cure it. I just have to work on it every single day. It took 20 years, or 16 if you want to be specific. I started with my anxiety when I was 4 and I am 20 now and I still have anxiety.
I have endometriosis. Well, I was diagnosed when I was 20. So that was 10 years ago. I've had 3 laparoscopies. The first one was obviously to find out that I have got endometriosis, but it took about 7-8 years to get to that point. When I was 13, I had really bad period pains to the point where I couldn't go to school. I was in agony. You know, when you're 13, that you just thought that was a normal thing. You just believed that that was what periods were like, and I thought, shit, this is going to be me for the next 50 years. And then as time went on, and I realised that I was the only person, you know, speaking to my friends, and this is how I felt. No one else felt like this. Went to the doctors and was told a number of things. I was told I had PCOS, I was told I had IBS, I was told that it would be an STI, bearing in mind I was a teenager at the time, so well done doctors. They said that I was being over dramatic, it was just period pain, it'll go over time. It took about 7 years to be diagnosed, and then it wasn't until I refused to leave the doctors, I actually had a tantrum and said, no, I'm not leaving until you refer me. I then had my referral, I went and had an ultrasound, and then had my first laparoscopy. They said, oh yeah, you've got deep infiltrated endometriosis.
I knew for several years that I must have been suffering with something, because I was kind of getting constantly bullied. I struggled to find like happiness, and I had several low points that I didn't really speak to anybody about. Like I was in secondary school and like in year 9, so I was like little and like wanting to kill myself. Like I didn't think that was normal. So I knew that I had mental illnesses. However, in May 2017, I got referred, screened and diagnosed with anxiety, depression and PTSD. I was kind of scared because I was basically now on the other end of the spectrum with all the crazy people. I learned to come to terms with my illnesses. I'm not scared of the stigma anymore. Like I understand that many people suffer with mental illnesses and they're completely fine. And I am who I am, like with illnesses or without.
It's kind of difficult because it's a mental illness. It's kind of difficult to pinpoint when the onset was for me, but my PTSD is a result of sexual trauma as a child and trauma throughout my adulthood. I think it was probably about 2 years from my onset to actually being diagnosed. I was diagnosed during a time where I was in psychiatric hospital. Essentially I was suicidal because I didn't understand what was actually happening to my own body and my mind and why, and it was basically the onset of PTSD, and it was manifesting itself through flashbacks. So I would be just re-traumatised every time I would have them. I feel like my diagnosis helped me understand my trauma better and understand myself better. As weird as it is, I was happy to have that diagnosis because I could then think, oh okay, that makes sense. Like I can understand why all that stuff was happening. It wasn't like I was just going crazy. So for me it was a good thing, even though it was unexpected and really weird to hear.
6 years. Fibro is a diagnosis via exclusion. So I have been diagnosed with many things in the past that I've kind of fit into, and then they have decided that I don't fit into it and then undiagnosed me. Even with the diagnosis I have now, I don't really get my heart set on a title because I've had it be revoked many times before. The diagnosis process is soul-crushing and frustrating and expensive and painful. I just need someone to help me find a cause and a treatment plan. I don't need a name. Forget about the name. Just work on what I'm feeling.
They don't usually diagnose people of my age, but it got to a point they had to just say, this is your diagnosis, this is what we're going to do for you, these are the meds you're going to take, and this is the treatment for it. Please go away and find out about it so you can help yourself. That was amazing for me. I know people don't like to be labelled, but I personally needed it. I can go to people, I've got this is what I've got, this is what it means, this is how I can treat it. Obviously my friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, whoever, they can type in symptoms, how it can affect relationships. It's not like it's just this thing, I don't know what it is, and so you can't research it, I can't research it, we're all just stuck in the grey area.
Well, once I decided that I wanted to get tested for it, it didn't take too long at all really, it was a few months, but I was having surgery for it before I even knew why I needed it, basically. So I was having surgeries on my feet when I was about 16. I was probably showing signs of it all my life, really, when I look back. You know, being someone who generally fell over a lot and was always spraining ankles, just generally not quite keeping up with everyone else. You know, the symptoms are quite subtle, so it is easily missed for a lot of people. But I didn't get diagnosed till I was 19 and I was in university studying physio.
So my diagnosis in total took about 2 weeks. I was having symptoms of type 1 diabetes, but my mum wasn't too sure
about what it was. So I was 9 at this point, and one morning I came down and just drank 4 glasses of water, literally one after another, and my mum just said, we're going to the doctor, so I want to get tested for diabetes. And I didn't really know what type 1 diabetes was, so I was like, oh, okay. He saw that there was loads of sugar in my blood, so then I went to hospital where they did a proper diagnosis with blood tests. My diagnosis kind of made me feel, I was just intrigued. I had no idea what type 1 diabetes was, and I was almost kind of excited because it was all this new kind of equipment, and I just didn't understand what it properly was or what it would entail.
So I started seeing a school counsellor in 2014, but I wasn't officially diagnosed with anything until 2016 when I got an official CAMHS diagnosis after my PTSD started affecting school. I was really relieved, obviously. Diagnosis, great, I can start treatment, but really annoyed at how long it took because I've been showing symptoms of anxiety and depression since summer of 2013. And I started counselling in 2014, and then I still didn't get a diagnosis for anything until 2016. It's like, that is a long fucking time to be waiting, you know, because like your treatment options are limited until you have an actual diagnosis. So that was really not fun.
Diagnosis took a really long time. I feel like I had it all my life, but it really started to take over 2 years ago, and I was really my lowest. I went to therapy, I went to psychiatrist, and that was the best decision that I could possibly make. I felt relieved when I heard that I have OCD, not because I wanted one, but because I finally knew what is wrong with me, even though taking the meds wasn't the best idea in my case because they influenced my everyday life in a very bad way. I still am really happy that I'm going to therapy and doing something about it.
I had a suicide attempt when I was 18 years old, and after my suicide attempt I got fast-tracked to the front of a adult therapy centre where I was diagnosed by 3 psychologists, but unfortunately you have to be diagnosed by 3 psychiatrists. Over the last year or so I tried to get that paper diagnosis, the official one, and I couldn't. Reason being is a guy told me off the record, who was the only psychiatrist I've ever spoken to, he told me that they don't like to diagnose it because therapists don't like to treat it, and if they diagnosed me with it, it would make me a lot more rejected with any kind of therapy that I wanted to do. They didn't officially diagnose it, but I do have it because I was told I have it. At the time, I mean, no one's happy to be told they have a long-term illness, but I was quite relieved that there was a reason that I acted the way I acted on my life, to be honest. I never knew why I was so sensitive and why I was so upset over really small things that like other people wouldn't be so upset about. I didn't understand that, and to know that there was a reason why all them things were happening that had happened in my childhood, it made a lot more sense, and it kind of gave me a bit of comfort. I felt pretty positive that this was something that I could acknowledge and change over time.
I was 18 when I was diagnosed with mild depression, so that was 8 years ago. Honestly, it made me mad because what I was feeling didn't feel mild. I wanted to die. I didn't want to be alive. I didn't want to be feeling anything. But according to the doctor, it was mild, and she referred me to group therapy, which I went to once and then didn't return to because it did nothing for me. So since then, I've been trying to manage it by myself. I've never medicated it. Recently, I have been tempted to medicate, but my eating disorder tells me that it's going to make me gain weight, so I haven't.
It took a year to be diagnosed with JIA, and then when I was diagnosed there was a bit of relief because it had been going on for so long, and it was nice to find out that answer. But being 14 and being told your diagnosis, for a 14-year-old that was really hard to hear because it felt like a definitive end for me, and it felt like essentially I just felt useless.
My depression diagnosis probably took about 6 months and happened when I went into hospital for intensive physiotherapy for CRPS. I saw a psychiatrist at the time, and that's when I started my first antidepressant. The chronic pain, I'm still working for a diagnosis on what I think is a hypermobility spectrum disorder. I know I'm hypermobile, though I have not had an official diagnosis, and I'm still working for it. I would really like to get a proper diagnosis so people might start taking me seriously when I say that I'm in constant pain. People, even in my family, disregard it. It's heartbreaking.
For me, diagnosis took a really long time. I started showing symptoms when I was 14 years old, and I took them just about a year and a half to actually give me an official diagnosis, but I do wish that it would have come along sooner. I think I could have avoided a lot of the physical like joint damage that happened, as well as the emotional. I became sick when I was 12. I didn't get diagnosed until I was 22. Finally, when I got diagnosed, I just cried all the way home from the doctor. It was so amazing to get diagnosed because I finally had a name for something that I'd been suffering with for so long. I was able to look up support groups and find people that shared my plight, if you will, so that was amazing.
So technically I've not actually been diagnosed yet. My gynecologist said to me that I most probably have endometriosis, or it could be IBS. The only way to actually find out what it is, how to diagnose, is through a laparoscopy, so I'm currently on a waiting list for that. Most of my doctors just tell me it's in my head and treat me like I'm hysterical, so I spend most of my time with GPs just trying to convince them to take me seriously.
I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression when I was 13, but I'd say from the age of like 17, 18, when I was having outbursts and I was doing like really kind of bad impulsive things, I realised that there was something a lot more wrong with me. Up until the beginning of this year, so it was just before I turned 23, I was finally listened to, finally had a serious doctor to listen to me. She sat me down and, you know, she was really lovely. It took a really fucking long time, basically, and when I was told, I was so happy because I knew there was some, it's almost like, you know, there's something wrong with you, and I felt like I was going crazy. I felt like there was something really wrong with me and that I wasn't a functioning human being and that maybe I shouldn't even be alive. Like, that's how traumatic this whole experience has been for me. I was relieved but also really scared because there is so much stigma around mental health, let alone something such as borderline, which nobody really knows anything about. You hear, you know, people saying, oh, you know, I've got borderline. They're like, oh, you must be crazy then, or how are you not locked up forever? Like, it's quite overwhelming, but at the same time, I know that now that I've had the diagnosis, I can get the help that I finally need, and I'm managing my symptoms a lot better. And I can safely say, touch wood, that I've only had, I'd say, about 4 kind of breakdowns since my diagnosis, and I've been able to handle them a lot quicker, more efficiently and effectively the more that it kind of happens.
My diagnosis didn't take that long, actually. I'd spoken to my friends at the time and they had told a teacher because I was self-harming and a lot of nasty stuff, and what happened was the teacher then told my mum. After that, it only took a couple of weeks because of my self-harm and because I wasn't eating as much. It was kind of like classed as an emergency case, which I know wouldn't have happened if those things weren't going on, which is really shitty because no matter what you do to yourself, your brain is still needs help. Do you know what I mean? It's like, even though you're not hurting yourself, you're already hurting inside. It doesn't matter how quick someone should get help based on what they've gone through. Everyone should get the same amount of help no matter what they've gone through. Because it didn't take so long, I felt okay about it. But at the time, everything was happening so quickly. I was going to therapist after therapist. I went to about 4 different therapy sessions in the space of a week of everyone finding out.
How do people react, and do they treat me any different? Most people don't treat me too differently. A lot of people feel bad for me when I tell them details about it, but generally speaking, it is a little bit embarrassing to talk about cystic acne that is kind of gross. I've had some people tell me, well, just go to the doctor and get medicine. Unfortunately, I can't do that. There's no treatment for my chronic illness. I will have this for the rest of my life, and I will suffer in varying degrees forever, pretty much. Luckily, cannabis helps me. I live in Colorado, so it's legal here to consume cannabis. That has been one of the reasons that I went into remission in the first place, so I'm so thankful for that. So people react like a number of different ways to my diagnosis. A lot of people are like, their immediate reaction is always like confusion. They're like, were you in the army or something? Like, a lot of people automatically assume that it's to do with being at war, and I think they just don't know how to ask me questions. They just panic, depending on the setting. If it's like someone I just need to tell for like work, for example, I kind of just say I have PTSD, it's to do with trauma when I was young. You can see like the panic on their face because they're so uncomfortable hearing that because it's not spoken about, and I'm very like, I want people to know so that they can understand me better, so they don't think I'm being just an absolute knob for no reason or I'm being awkward for no reason.
They don't react positively because anxiety has been over and over and over generalized in social media. It has been romanticized and people don't take it seriously anymore. Now people are kind of understanding that anxiety is not just, oh, I'm anxious. It's actually a mental illness. People tend to roll their eyes at me, but when they see it, they believe it. When they see me having a panic attack, they believe me. When they don't, they just roll their eyes at me or just look annoyed.
People usually react with their own assumptions because as soon as someone hears the word diabetes, they think obesity, unhealthy diet, lack of exercise, because in the media, well, diabetes is constantly referred to as being type 2 diabetes, but they never put the type 2 label on it. So as soon as anyone hears diabetes, that's all they associate it with. And it does annoy me, but I can't get angry with the people because it's the media that have represented it wrong, and TV and everything. As soon as I tell them, be like, oh, my granny has that, oh, that means you can't eat any sugar, and I'll be like, no, let me tell you. Other times people will just be quite intrigued. This is how I treat it with these pods, and they'll be intrigued about my treatment methods and kind of what I have to do, which I prefer to obviously to the assuming reaction, but it's not their fault. People don't treat me differently, which is a good thing. I wouldn't want to be treated differently, but I think a lot of the time, because it's an invisible illness, it's really easy to forget that I have it. Sometimes you just kind of wish that people would remember or know the constant stress and pressure and how scary the disease is to have, how big of a toll it can take on your life.
I don't really state that I have mental health issues simply because the community I feel like I'm in isn't really welcoming to mental illnesses. However, there are some people that I do confide in and they understand what my illnesses are and try to help me through it. My friends especially, like, they act differently but only in ways to cater to me. Like, they will check up on me regularly and constantly provide emotional and mental support. Like, they have my back regardless, sort of thing.
So I'm still quite insecure about telling people. So when I do tell people, it's gonna be my closest friends. Sometimes I will get people, sometimes they feel bad for me because I can't drink or I can't do things they can.
When people react to my illness and I tell them what I have, they don't have a clue what it is. They don't have any idea what it is, and when I try and explain, they either 1, don't understand, 2, make assumptions, or 3, just kind of look at me a bit weird and kind of go, okay, and dismiss the whole fact that I even have it. So I find 9 times out of 10, if I told someone I had depression or anxiety, they would be like, I know what that is. Possibly even OCD or bipolar. Whereas when I tell people I have a personality disorder, they kind of go, what's that? And when I try and explain the criteria to them, they kind of just go, so you're an attention seeker? So yeah, they do treat me differently. I get kind of treated like it's something that I can help and it's something that I'm choosing to do, so that my symptoms, I'm choosing to act in them all them ways when I'm not. And a lot of people seem to think it's a choice, and it's not really something as serious as what it is.
This depends person to person. Some people will treat me like I'm made of glass and tiptoe around conversations or activities in fear of triggers, and then they will stop talking about their own problems in fear of complaining. Some people treat me the same and just accept and understand that sometimes I may need help or adaptations. Others ignore it altogether and just expect me to function as a normal human being, and that my illness doesn't actually affect my life as much as it does. Then you get those who think I am over-exaggerating, searching for pity, and just being lazy.
When I talk about feeling anxious or socially awkward, I don't think people believe me, because everyone's just like, oh, you're so bubbly, or you're not awkward, what are you talking about? I don't think people treat me differently because I don't think that they believe me. The people who do believe me, like my family and my close friends, or anyone who really gets to know me properly, they're really helpful if I'm having a bad day, or they understand if I'm not able to sort of get my words out properly, or if I am panicking. They're really understanding, which is great.
A common way that people react is they're like, oh, you're just lazy, you just can't be bothered, you just be honest, you can't be bothered, haha. I've got that as well then, because I'm lazy or whatever. And another way people react is, oh, I wish I had that, I wish I could ditch college and sleep all day, haha. Like, and it's like, you really don't wish that. Why would you wish that you have a debilitating condition that stops you from learning and stops you from interacting with human beings? I just have to remind myself that it just comes from a place of ignorance, and they're just trying to like relate to me and be funny and stuff, so it doesn't get to me as much as it used to when people say that. It used to like really offend me, but now I just brush it off and I'm like, haha, yeah,
Since my diagnosis, I've only ever been with one person, and that was after my diagnosis. I found it really hard to maintain friendships and relationships. I tend to push a lot of people away. My current partner, I found it really hard to tell them about my borderline, and it just ended up slipping out one day. We were on a date and they were so supportive. Like, it actually knocked me for 6, because I've never met anybody that was kind of like, oh, okay. They went off, they kind of did some research about it and are constantly reassuring me and giving me the care that I need. My friends, they kind of treat me like a drama queen. If I'm angry or upset about something, they just immediately think it's because of my borderline, and they think that I'm being irrational, when actually everybody has fucking feelings and everybody deserves to feel their fucking feelings. Like, just because I have a mental health issue that is, you know, quite severe doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to be upset. And if I am, they'll kind of make jokes, say, oh, Sophia's crazy, like, call the men in white jackets, let's send her away, you know, or they make jokes about like multiple personalities, like, oh, don't tell your other self that. And I can make fun of myself because it's almost like I'm accepting it. You make jokes about it in order for you to kind of be a bit more lighthearted about it. And I really hope that one day I can be comfortable with making jokes and having other people make jokes, but at the minute I find it really hard. So when people are criticising me in that way, I come off. I find it really hard. I made a blog trying to document my process and talk about borderline a lot more because it's just not really spoken of. I receive so many hate comments and people being so negative that I just completely shut it down. People do react really negatively, unfortunately, and that's just like soul destroying.
People react okay. They're usually kind about it. They're all very usually shocked, because I've always been like a fairly good student. All of a sudden I stopped going to class and like I show up once a month usually. No one knows why. They all think I'm just relaxing, but then I tell them I have schizophrenia. While they're initially nice, once I go into it a bit more, they start to think of me as crazy and they usually do not talk to me anymore. All of a sudden they disappear from my lives.
People have only started to notice recently with the weight loss and the fact that I'm finding it harder and harder to hide how I feel. People have told me that they're worried about me and that I'm getting too skinny. That's one side of it, but the other side of it is people saying, oh, what have you got to be depressed about? That makes me really mad because you have no idea what goes on in my life or in my head. Depression doesn't work like that. You don't need a reason to be depressed. It's a chemical imbalance.
When PTSD is talked about, people are understandably a lot more cautious. I guess they don't want to upset me or trigger me, which is really nice and considerate, but it's something I need to talk about, and I don't mind talking about it. I enjoy talking about it. And I think sometimes people have treated me differently, but it's not that noticeable. Like, I had old friends who, if I had a breakdown, would go and like talk about me behind my back and be like, oh my god, she's overreacting. And it's like, no, I'm not. I literally can't control this. And I had people who would try and, you know, use my PTSD for their own gain. I had an old guy friend who tried to use it to hook up with me. So making out used to be a really, really big trigger for me for a very long time. And he was like, oh yeah, if you need anyone to help you practice so you can boost your confidence in it, like, just let me know. And at the time I was like, that's a bit weird, I'm not going to do that. But then on reflection I was like, wow, that's disgusting that you even thought about asking me that. No.
Has your invisible illness changed you as a person? If so, how? Yeah. I think that being 14 and going through all of that and having to learn how to talk to medical practitioners to get the care that I needed, I had to grow up really fast, and I missed out on essentially half of my high school career because I was 14 when I was diagnosed, and I didn't actually start feeling good until I was like 17 years old, and I graduated when I was 17. I'm a little bit more strict with myself than I might have been had I not gotten this diagnosis. I think I go about life maybe with rose-colored glasses a little bit. I'm definitely more soft and empathetic as a person, but I also know where to set the boundaries just because of what I went through in the medical industry, in the medical community, getting my diagnosis. I know how to stand up for myself, and I'm like, nah, cut the shit. I don't have time to deal with that.
I like to think about it as it's helped me become who I am. The psychosis side changes who I am because it's like I explain it, I've got two personalities, trauma personality and this personality. And when this personality gets triggered, my trauma therapist thinks, I'll deal with that for you. Comes forward, and it's not a nice way that it deals with it, it's a fucking horrible way, but my trauma personality deals with it, and then I switch back and I don't remember what happens most of the time because it's really distressing. And it's also helped me become who I am.
It has and it hasn't. It's changed me in a sense of opened me up to so many different difficulties and like learning more about the female reproductive system. It's actually made me a lot more knowledgeable because I never really understood what endometriosis was. I never really understood what polycystic ovaries was. I didn't understand any of it. I wouldn't say it's changed me as a person. I wouldn't say it's like shaped me in any way, but it's just made me like a lot more knowledgeable.
I think it has changed me as a person in good ways and bad. So I think that in a good way, there's the fact that it's been a real driver for me to make sure that I follow the career path that I want to follow, even if it's not necessarily the same as everyone else. because I know that my career is likely to be shorter than anyone else. So I feel like I should do what I want to do in the time that I can do it. It's given me sort of the courage to do that.
It has changed me as a person a lot. I've become a more compassionate person, or I think it made me a compassionate person because I was 4 years old when all this began. So I started being more compassionate with everybody because I thought everybody had all these issues. I thought it was normal to be so scared all the time, and throughout the years it made me more conscious of the things I said, the things I did, and how I treated people.
Definitely. When I was 16 is when all bad stuff started happening. So I mean, I've been in care my whole life, so it was kind of a build up really, but 16 was I think when it hit me, and then when I was 17 I had my first little boy. After I had him is when it all kicked in, so it changed me then. I felt weak and I felt scared at the time, but now I've got my second little boy. I haven't been on my medication since I had him, since I got pregnant with him, sorry. I feel really strong, I feel more confident. I'm not 100%, and I probably never will be, but I'm more confident in myself. I'm more confident knowing what type of person I am.
I don't think my illness has ever changed. My personality is just me. I'm maybe more open-minded. I don't judge people a lot. You never know what's happening in their lives that we can't see.
I wouldn't say my invisible illness has actually changed me as a person, more because I've really lived with it all my life. It's just got worse to the point where I had to get help for it, but I have definitely changed for dealing with it. I understand at my age, which is 16, it's still young, and some people will not understand and will not be able to cope with that stuff. And I've definitely changed because I have a whole new group of friends, and they have been the most supportive friends I have ever had. Like, it's so unreal how one group of friends just left me like that, and I'd been friends with them for like 4 years at that point, and they just left. And people who I've never really spoken to in my life just come in and be like, you know what, we'll be your friends, like we'll help you through this. And they've been like the best thing that could ever have happened to me. And genuinely I think that's what's changed me, is the fact that my invisible illness made people leave who I didn't want in my life anymore. They made me realise who my friends were, like my true friends were, and who was going to be there for me.
Yes, it definitely has, in positive and in negative ways. I have definitely become more of a recluse, and social activities and outings scare me a lot more. That has definitely hindered my social life. Being in pain all the time has definitely impacted my mental health. Working is a struggle, as I need a flexible job and something that doesn't take too much of a toll on my body. With the government, you can either be sick and unworking or able to do a full-time job. So I got no help and ended up having to start my own business. I can also no longer do fun activities that I enjoyed. Lastly, but most importantly, I don't think I would be so in tune with people and compassionate and empathetic and able to understand and just want to help as much as I can if I didn't grow up like this.
Definitely, completely. I was very different before I became depressed from chronic migraines. They completely sucked the life out of me, and ever since then I've been really struggling. I am a completely different person. I used to be so optimistic and such a happy girl, but I'm just not anymore. That's really changed me. Although on my journey I've made so many new friends who understand me and can relate to my pain, which I really, really appreciate. So to all of you who have supported me, a big thank you.
I would say it changed me as a person. I'm vegan because of my chronic illness. Dairy and meat make inflammation in the body so much worse, so I went vegan. That's been one of the most rewarding and happy, wonderful things in my life, so I'm so thankful for that. I wear primarily black clothes. At this point I consider myself a goth. Black doesn't show bloodstain very well. I started wearing black to hide any leaking cysts that might occur. Like I said, I live in Colorado. I had to move here to get treatment for my illness because I didn't live in a state where cannabis was legal before this, so that's, you know, a big life change moving across the country. I had to quit smoking because of my chronic illness. That was a change for the better as well.
I think my anxiety has made me a more compassionate and empathetic person, because I will always try and understand why people behave the way that they behave, because I know from my own personal experience that there's always a reason why people are the way that they are. With HS, I think it's just increased my pain tolerance. I very rarely complain about the pain of my HS.
I've become a lot more understanding of my needs for self-care. I know now whenever my symptoms kind of flare up, depending where I am, I know that I need to take a step back. It's made me a lot more patient. It's made me a lot more kind to myself. It's also made me a lot more distant with people, because I realised that I need to protect myself. I can't have people offloading all of their problems to me anymore, because I just take them to heart too much, or I just don't care at all. As horrible as that sounds, I find it really hard to connect with people. I used to be this really loud, outspoken person that would I'd have an opinion on anything, whereas now I don't really feel like I can.
Definitely changed me as a person because of how intolerant the right is towards people with mental illness or disability in general. It definitely pushed me very far to the left. A lot of it's political. Also, my family can't afford healthcare for me because of the way the USA is. It's very harmful, so it's made me move left. Even though I'm incredibly weak mentally and physically now, I feel like I'm a stronger person as I've been through a lot.
I feel like my illness has changed me as a person. I feel like in the past I managed to deal with my depression and still pretend I was okay. Now my fuse is shortened and I'm a lot angrier. I'm quite bitter, to be honest. It's changed me in a bad way, but also in a good way. I'm learning to be better at empathy and providing/finding comfort in people with similar difficulties to me. So in a way, it's changed me for the worse, but in another way it's changed me for the better.
It has changed me as a person. It's made me realise a few things. It's made me realise how actually strong I actually am as a person. You know, I have to go to work, and everything that a normal person without this takes for granted, I have to do with agony. It's also kind of made me realise how much other people with the same condition as me kind of go through it too. That's been one of the best things about, I say best things, there's no good thing about it, but one of the positive things to come out of being diagnosed with this is finding other people that have the same condition as me and talking to them, and finding groups that have similar things, either endometriosis or adenomyosis. It has changed me, I think, for the better. It's made me kind of, you know, be strong.
Yes, definitely. I definitely feel like I've had to change as a person over the last 6-7 months or so. I used to work 40 plus hours a week. I was non-stop doing something. Finding out I had endo has forced me to slow down. I've put my health and my self-care first above all now. It's just caused me, just made me become such a more chilled out person. I don't feel so stressed and anxious all the time. I definitely feel like my body is benefiting off that lack of stress that I was, you know, giving myself, which I didn't really need to give myself.
I think it's made me more secure in myself and a better friend to myself, because I was so alone during my early teenage years, because I was never in school, barely ever. Because I was by myself so much, I think I learned to get on with myself more. It made me better at prioritising things and knowing what's important in life and what isn't really, and that value my health more. I think it's made me value my health and health in general. Just little things like being able to go for a walk or being able to hang out with a friend, which to other people is probably day-to-day stuff, but to me it's like a treat. It's like a day where I can leave the house is a treat, because a lot of days I can't, I'm too tired.
I think my mental disorders have definitely made me stronger. Undeniably so, of course they have. Now, I am so determined to never let anyone treat me that badly again in regards to my PTSD, and I don't let anyone or anything stop me from achieving the goals that I have, whether that's in terms of education or pursuing, you know, better mental health. Nothing is getting in my way. I'm gonna get that goal. You can't stop me. That my mental health can't stop me. Nothing is stopping that.
Yes. In my experience, going from very healthy to very ill for a number of years has made me change my priorities in life. I will no longer ever take advantage of having good health. While I am very healthy and in remission now, I will continue to take on all the challenges that I can, because you never know when your health is going to deteriorate again, especially with an autoimmune disease. So I've done things like pole dancing, I've done dancing, I've done gymming and weights, which I'd never usually do. I do running. I just want to take advantage of things like that ever again. And more importantly, now I'm travelling and I'm being the independent person that I never thought I could be when I was diagnosed at 14, 15 years old.
My PTSD has definitely changed me as a person. I feel more able to connect with myself. I feel like when my PTSD was really bad and like before diagnosis, etc., all the abuse from when I was young had separated me into two people. I was either safe and fine and like with my friends or my family, or I was absolutely terrified. I can't even explain the fear I felt and the panic, and I felt constantly sick because I felt guilty. Now I say that I feel like one person, and it sounds so strange. Like, I think it's so hard for people to understand because it's difficult to articulate how it actually feels. After I'd been diagnosed and after I did a complete year of therapy doing CBT, after that I finally felt like I was one person and I connected to the person I was before I'd ever been abused. So then I eventually came out of it. It's changed me massively. It's made me grateful for a lot of things in my life.
If you could wake up tomorrow with no illness, would you? I've thought about this question a lot, and to be honest, who wouldn't? I know that sounds quite selfish. I wouldn't wish borderline on my worst enemy. It is really difficult to deal with. Don't get me wrong, it's made me a stronger person, and I am facing challenges every day that it's only making me stronger. Hello, darling. And part of me, maybe not fully. I just want an easy life. I want to be happy. I want to be understood. And there are so many more people that understand you if they have the same condition, but I don't know anybody else with borderline personality disorder. And honestly, and this isn't to slate anybody or anyone's beliefs, it's just my personal opinion, if I could wake up without it, I would do it, because my life is genuinely hell every single day. Like, don't get me wrong, everyone has, you know, I have my good days, I have my bad days, but my bad days are really fucking bad and my good days are really fucking good. I feel like I never have an in-between. I can never be like, okay, I either have to be really happy or really angry or really sad or really overwhelmed or really anxious about something. I'm glad that it's part of me, and I'm glad that I can learn and be stronger, but some days when it's really testing me, I wish that I just was a normal person. What the fuck even does that mean? But I do.
If I could wake up with no anxiety, I absolutely, without hesitation, would do that, yeah. If I could wake up without HS, I would like to say I would, but my partner reminds me that my scars are a part of me and I am the person that I am today because of that. I'm really happy with the person that I've become, so maybe I wouldn't be in such a hurry to change it, but it would be nice to not have it, definitely.
No, I don't think I would. I don't regret anything in my life, and I don't want to change anything about my life. Pretty content with where I am in life. Taken a lot of self-acceptance and therapy and medications, and very supportive wife and a very supportive family for the most part. I feel like if I constantly wish that I wasn't schizophrenic, I think I'd be putting myself down. I think accepting it is a great way to move forward. So no, I don't think I would change anything about my life.
My initial answer to the question, if I could wake up with no mental illness tomorrow, would I? Is actually no. But I know that that's my default setting. I know that's me being terrified of change because it's been so long and I don't know life without depression and anxiety. I don't know who I'd be without it. But I also know that I'd be happier and there would be more room in my life for socialising and enjoying myself and not worrying about little things. I would love to wake up tomorrow and be happy and healthy because I know that it would not only make my life better, but it would better the lives of the people around me and the people who love me, and they wouldn't have to worry about me. I know that everything is a learning experience, but it would definitely be a massive weight off to not be mentally ill anymore.
As hard as it is, I don't think I would want to wake up one morning without it. About 3-4 years ago, if you'd asked me that question, I would have said yes, get rid of it, take it away, destroy it, I would have happily said that. However, over the last year or so, by posting things about it and resharing, you know, documents and articles and things like that about it, I've actually had a couple of people message me recently telling me that they wanted to just thank me for sharing posts about endometriosis because it actually made them then realise that's what they actually have themselves. That's kind of made me feel good about the situation. Of course, I don't want to be in pain 24/7, but at the same time, if by raising awareness, by posting about it and talking about it and sharing my experiences helps other people, then that's great. That's amazing.
To be honest, I would wake up tomorrow with no illness, but I would still want to have that experience. Seeing as mine's a mental illness, it's more the fact that I don't want to have to struggle every single morning to get up and do stuff. Making my bed is a big task, and as you can see, it's done. If I could wake up tomorrow with no illness, I would take it because I want to live life without judgment from anyone. Seeing as I have anxiety, I worry about every single thing that could possibly happen, and I wish that I didn't have to do that so I could do whatever the heck I want to do. But that's not going to happen, and I'm okay with that not happening. I'm okay with the fact that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I might be a little bit down and I might be a bit depressed, and that's okay.
It's a tricky one because my mental health has definitely shaped who I am. I wouldn't be me without it, in the sense I wouldn't be who I am today without it. So I wouldn't want to like take it back and say that it never happened. But that being said, one of my biggest problems with, especially with depression, is as soon as one tiny little thing goes wrong, my brain just spirals, and it can go from, you know, me spilling a glass of water to, you can't do anything right, you're a failure, you don't deserve to live, you should kill yourself, like in the space of 5 minutes, and that's horrible. So if I could get rid of that, then yes, I'd say I probably would, you know, like to wake up without a mental illness if I could, because yeah, there are days when it makes my life a living hell. Really like to get rid of that, and also not even just for myself but for my friends and my family. I know how worried they are, I know how much they care, and that they want me to be better, especially my parents. If I could get rid of my mental health problems for anyone, it would be for my mum and dad. It breaks my heart seeing how worried they are for me. If I could get rid, then yeah, probably would.
Despite everything that I've said, even though I think having an invisible illness has really shaped my entire outlook on my life, if I could wake up tomorrow, ideally, yeah, I wouldn't like to have my autoimmune disease. And that is mainly because, like, right now I love to travel, and my YouTube channel is all about travelling as a vegan, and you know what, that's hard enough on its own, let alone having an autoimmune disease and having to pay so much money for travel insurance and all that sort of shit. So yes, maybe it's the unpopular opinion, but yeah, I'd love to wake up one day and not have to deal with that on my mind.
No, I wouldn't. I feel like having endometriosis has really opened my eyes to how hard it is to be a woman. Like, there's so many female reproductive illnesses and conditions. There's a lack of research, there's a lack of like general knowledge, let alone, you know, doctors' knowledge on the subjects. Doctors just keep telling me to go on the pill. I've just been refusing. I used to be on the pill. It was not great. So I just want to do it naturally, but not many people understand that or know how to. So yeah, no, I'm proud to have endometriosis, and I'm proud to be a advocate for reproductive health and everything, and menstrual rights.
I would definitely love to wake up without chronic fatigue. That's kind of the goal. I am making progress. Like, when I think about just a year ago what I could and couldn't do, in just a year's time I've made leaps. During my GCSEs I was so depressed and alone, and now I have a group of friends. Even though I don't see them very often, I've got nice friends in my life, and this year at college I've got like the highest grades I could have got and stuff, so I'm definitely making progress and getting better. But yeah, I'd love to wake up without being tired. That would be great.
That's a really hard question because I've been shaped as a person due to being sick for the last over 15 years with this illness. I don't know who I would be without it. If I could wake up tomorrow and never get sick again, I want to say yes, but at the same time, I don't know, because it's been a positive change in my life. Like, despite all the suffering that I have had, anxiety and depression are comorbids of this disease because it takes a mental toll on you when you're sick. Yeah, maybe it would be nice to wake up and feel like a normal person, whatever normal may be, but it's made me generally more compassionate as a human being. So I don't know, I don't think so. And right now I'm in remission, so that's easy for me to say, but if I were to wake up tomorrow with a golf ball sized cyst in my armpit and I wasn't able to move, I might think differently.
Yes, it's not even a question, it ruins my life. I have grown as a person, yes, but would I trade that for the pain that I'm in every day and the constant horrible thoughts that go through my mind? No. I would love it to be gone. I would hate for it to stay.
Yes, no thought needed. To wake up comfortable and pain-free, I would take that even if it was for 10 minutes. To be in pain for 6 years and not a moment of comfort can really break you down. I don't know what I would do because I've never experienced that. I've never experienced a healthy body. I don't know what that would feel like. I'm guessing lots of energy and, I don't know, not being aware of every inch of your body and your organs because they hurt.
Definitely not. I mean, I would love to wake up tomorrow and know that I could handle my illness better and it wouldn't affect other people or upset them as much as it does, because I know that it negatively affects a lot of people in my life. However, it's made me a lot more empathetic, it's made me care a lot more about things, and it's given me a completely different outlook on life. So I would never want to wake up tomorrow with it not there. However, I would love for it to not hurt as many people, have more people know about this disorder, and I'd love to be able to handle it better than I do, and there be more help for it.
Okay, so this is a question that I've asked myself many times. Okay, but I think I wouldn't do it because it's something special. Like, my illness makes me special in a way. Why waste this opportunity to live a different life? It has its cons and pros or whatever, but yeah, like, it's my life. I appreciate life a bit more. Yeah, I wouldn't change this.
If I could wake up tomorrow with no illnesses, I think I would keep them, because although they make my life very difficult, I really do want to persevere through them and overcome my mental health issues by myself. Like, I feel like it would be such a huge accomplishment for me, and I would feel so proud to know that I did that. So if I could wake up tomorrow with no illnesses, I wouldn't. I would want to continue my mental health battle and stuff like that, if that makes sense.
If you could wake up tomorrow with no illness, would you? No. And some days I will sit there when I can't feel my legs and my legs are burning and say, I wish I didn't have this, I wish I didn't have this illness. But without that illness, I wouldn't be me. And these last 3 years have shaped me into me now, and without them, I don't know where I'd be, I don't know who I'd be. I wouldn't be Millie. I don't let endometriosis define me, but I don't let it be non-existent. I don't pretend like it's not there. I'd love to say I'd love to wake up pain-free. I'd say that, like, I'd love to not be in pain, but again, like I said, it wouldn't be me if I didn't have this illness.
If I could wake up tomorrow with no illness, would I? No. People would be like, why? Because if I didn't have PTSD, I wouldn't have had the trauma when I was young. And it sounds so weird, but to me, they all make me who I am. All the stuff I've been through has made me a more compassionate, caring, empathetic, loving person. I don't know if I'd still be like that had I not had my trauma and my PTSD. All my experiences have ultimately made me a better person, I think. I hope. I wish I hadn't been so alone for a long time, and I wish that I had maybe been diagnosed earlier, but everything happened the way it did. It had to pan out that way. I had to learn for myself how to get better and to let all that repressed emotion come up. I had to let it happen, and my life is now everything that I ever wanted it to be. So that's ultimately because of the way things have happened. That's my invisible illness. Thanks so much for watching.
It's a really tricky one to answer because I want to be able to run around after my son for the rest of my life, and I want to be able to keep up with him, and I want to be walking on my feet. I don't want to fall over when I'm older, and I don't want to have mobility problems as I get older, but at the same time I do think that through having it I've been able to gain unique insight into what it's like to have a condition like this, which helps me, I think, as a physio to relate to people better. So I do think it makes me a better physio, and I do think that I make the best of it on a day-to-day basis. So I can't say that I'm severely affected at the moment. So if it was only to ever be as bad as it is now, then I would probably say no, but you know, it's tricky because I know that it's going to get worse, but there's just no way to know how much worse. So that's the honest answer to that one.
All the other times I've filmed this, because I've filmed this a few times, I've said yes, I would wake up tomorrow with no illness. But talking about question 4 and how my illness has helped me become a more compassionate person, more understanding, it has helped me build relationships, it has helped me build this beautiful community on Instagram, I would say no. I would not be the person that I am today if I didn't have my mental illness or my invisible illness. I would not have the relationships I have today. I would not have the close relationship I have with my mother right now because of my illness. She would have never realized that she had anxiety if I didn't realize I had anxiety. It's been a journey, it's been tough, it's been rough, but it's my journey and I'm proud of it. So, no.
I wish I could say that I would want to keep diabetes and I wouldn't want to wake up without it, but realistically, since I was 9, I haven't had a day where I haven't been able to worry about it or care about it, and I would love more than anything to have a day or a week or forever just not having to worry and not having the burden of my own life constantly on my hands, and not having the burden of having long-term complications or short-term issues. I would love to wake up without diabetes, but it has made me the person I am today, and I love being able to spread awareness about it because it's something that people don't spread enough awareness about because it's type 1 and not type 2, and I really wish there was better education between them. So if that's one positive about it, that'll be it. I really want to educate more people about the differences between type 1 and type 2, but yeah, I probably would wake up without it if I could, just so I could be a normal teenager.
If I could wake up tomorrow with no illness, I definitely would. I wish I could say, no, I wouldn't, it makes me stronger as a person, but no, like in reality, I would wake up without it. If I could wake up without it, I would wake up without it, because it is really taking its toll on my everyday life. If I would count every minute I'm spending on checking things, I think that it's like hours in a day, and it's really, really tiring. Yeah, I wish all the best to people that have their own invisible illnesses, and I hope you're doing okay, and I hope you are getting help that you need and that you deserve.
Probably not, to be honest, because it's made me a stronger person, it's made me figure out who I am, it's made me realise I can do this, I can get through this life, I will be okay. I always think that when someone goes, oh, if there's anything you change in your life at all, would you? And honestly, as crap as some of it's been, I genuinely wouldn't, because it wouldn't have made me the person that I am today.
If my life had stayed the same, so I still had the traumas that caused the personality disorder, I would keep it, because it's the way I know how to survive. It's my body's coping mechanism, it's my way that I've survived. I need it because otherwise I wouldn't be able to cope with my traumas. But if I could change my whole life and I didn't have traumas, and so I wouldn't need a personality that helped me through it, fuck yeah. See you later, mate. Bye. You just be in the bin.
Ooh. Yeah. But I don't know, like, in a lot of ways. Oh man. I think I'm getting emotional about it because it's something I wonder about a lot. Like, what would my life be like had I not gone through what I did? I don't think I would wanna not have JRA. It sounds so strange to be like, this thing that's caused me immense pain I would continue to deal with. It's an emotional question because I think in any situation, yeah, I would give it up in a second. But at the same time, it's kind of become a part of me. This might sound cocky, but at the moment, my life is amazing. 7 years ago when I had a diagnosis, I didn't think it would be. And even before that, I didn't think it would be. But I'm happy with the chain of events that's led me to this moment. If I had the choice to wake up tomorrow and be rid of my autoimmune disorder, I wouldn't. I don't think I would. If anyone is struggling with either leading up to diagnosis or having just been diagnosed, or even halfway through their journey with it, like me, feel free to reach out. I'm always here to chat. I hope you get a lot of participation. This is important. I appreciate it. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. Okay. Love you. Bye.